Welcome to the Zono Sports Show, where you know Zo knows. Now, today we're going to discuss a few things. Action from last night. We had a few games on Thursday. There were two teams that were hoping for chips ahoy. The big dogs. Let's talk about the Louisville game and Tennessee. Louisville had a 70-14 victory against Charlotte. Now, Lamar Jackson was 17 for 23 with 286 passing yards, and he had 8 touchdowns in total. Started off really hot. 8 touchdowns, 6 passing, 2 on the ground. Now, Lamar, you really put yourself in a position to be talked about for the Heisman early. Let's see if Lamar Jackson keeps that up. I did say that he is someone who could potentially be thrown into that discussion based on their play, and he's shown that he's developed into a much better quarterback, so I can't keep talking too bad about Mr. Jackson, Agent LJ. Now, let's not lose sight of the fact that Charlotte was one of the worst teams in the nation last year, which Louisville did what they're supposed to do, blowing them out 70-14, because if that game comes back into play during playoff talk time, if they do have a loss to Florida State or Clemson, that game will matter. Excuse me. The Tennessee game. A lot of people in an uproar about that. That game 20-13 in overtime. Tennessee really struggled on defense. On offense as well as defense. Joshua Dobbs was 16 for 28 for 192 yards passing, 1 interception. They didn't play great. Tennessee did not play great. However, let's not lose sight of this fact. They did play Appalachian State, who is a notorious well-bred program that was great in FCS and just converted over to FBS. Let's not also forget that Tyler Lamb is a starting quarterback for Appalachian State. He played there last year, and they also went 11-2 and actually won a bowl game as well. One of their losses, those 2 losses, came to Clemson, who was our eventual national champion. Other than that, let's be serious, folks. They won 10 regular season games, and then they turn around and win a bowl game. That's an 11-win team the previous year. So I can't sit here and overreact to what's happened to Tennessee last night, because Appalachian State, great football team, and there's somebody that you definitely need to look out for. Also, what I do think is that Tennessee, preseason jitters. You know, when you're talked about as being a top 10 team for the first time in 10 years, you got guys that go out there, they don't know how to handle that. So let's hold off on calling them the biggest fraud, ESPN. Let's hold off on that, and let's give them time to develop as a team. This was a learning experience for them, playing under that national spotlight as a top 10 team. If nobody's done that, they got to get that experience under their belt. Also, South Carolina versus Vanderbilt, 13-10. South Carolina wins that game. Battle of last year's bums in the SEC. So it looks like the Vanderbilt will be the bottom of the East this year. South Carolina, you guys looked all right. Got a lot of nice young players. Our Labor Day doozies. These are our Saturday and Sunday games. First and foremost, let's talk about our playoff pickle game of the week. That will be Oklahoma versus Houston. Now, that will be Ole Miss and Florida State. We'll get to Oklahoma and Houston. That's a big game as well. Ole Miss versus Florida State is the playoff pickle game of the week. Anybody that watches baseball, you get caught in a pickle. Hey, throwing the ball back. Hey, throwing the ball back. Hey, throwing the ball back. Now he's out. That's pickle. So we've got a team on each side here, Ole Miss and Florida State, that have plenty to gain. It's a SEC versus ACC clash. Chad Kelly and Ole Miss, they need this because the SEC West is a tough conference. It's a tough division. So they could easily have a loss or 2 in that conference. They really only can afford to get 1. However, if they do have that 1 loss, a non-conference win against an AP opponent like Florida State will really help build their resume, strengthen it. Dalvin Cook and the Knowles need this because they have the Halloween game at home. The Halloween game against Clemson. They've got to play Deshaun Watson in their house, which I think they can win that game. Also, on the 17th, they've got that Louisville game. I went to that Louisville game last night, and Lamar Jackson looks pretty good, Florida State. So you guys better come ready to play. Just being honest. I'm just being honest. Anybody listen to Future. Now, I will say other notable ball games. Clemson, number 2 Clemson versus Auburn at Auburn, 9 p.m. Eastern. Well, Auburn defense, will they stop Deshaun Watson? Because, frankly, he's bowling over everybody like a 10 split spare. Okay, I do think that Auburn's got to play much better on defense. They gave up 27 points per game last year. Clemson scored that in all but 3 games. So, Auburn, if you guys are not going to stop Clemson at all from scoring 28, 35, 40 points, I don't think you guys can actually put that up on Clemson's defense to even compete in the game. But I think it'll be a much tighter game than people think because it's there in Jordan-Hare Stadium. That's what I think. Also, Clemson wants to send a postmarked delivered message to the SEC and everybody else. We run this. We run it. So we'll just have to see if they do actually run this or not. Oklahoma, number 3 Oklahoma versus number 15 Houston. That's at 12 p.m. Saturday in Houston. It's a de facto home game. It's at Reliant Stadium. So that's going to be a big game down there in Texas. I call it the early bird special. The early bird gets the worm. Houston, are you going to be the early bird? Or Oklahoma, will they be the worm? Who knows? Can you catch him sleeping? We'll have to see, Houston. I do think Houston is a team that has a lot to gain here. They've actually got the most to gain out of anybody in the country on this weekend. Because if you lose this game, Houston, you take yourself right out of playoff contention. However, if you win it versus a Power 5 opponent like Oklahoma, you place yourself right in the driver's seat of that national championship discussion. Greg Ward versus Baker Mayfield. Genie versus the Magic Man. I'm really anticipating that matchup. 2 great quarterbacks on 2 decent teams. Samaje Perine to back up that Oklahoma offense. I do think that will be the difference because of the matchup at running back opposed to Houston. I'm not positive on who their running back is, but Samaje Perine is a bulldozer. Also, which defense will bite the bone to the white meat? Whoever's defense comes to play and stops the other quarterback, I do think that will be the defense that will propel their team to a victory down there in Houston this weekend. That's a big game in my opinion. Now, we move along here. Georgia versus North Carolina. That's Saturday at 5:30 p.m. at the Georgia Dome. Nick Chubb, he's ready to rock, ready to eat, and I think he is very hungry. That is also kind of a de facto home game because they do play in the Georgia Dome. And when the Georgia Bulldogs play in the Georgia Dome, the fans do come out to support their team. So this will be a big game for Georgia against North Carolina. They're a team who they had some Tar Heel heat based on last year's results. Mitch Trubisky, Ryan Switzer, and Elijah Hood all coming back. I do think Mitch is a decent quarterback. I like Ryan Switzer. Maybe not the fastest guy. I do think he's fast. He moves a little quick, but he runs great routes. Elijah Hood's a tough running back, very shifty. Reminds me a little bit of a slower LaShawn McCoy. I do think North Carolina will come and put up a fight. Also, Kirby Smart brings that Alabama mean. Can he really bring that out of these Georgia Bulldogs, being a new coach there in Athens? We'll have to see how you respond in this de facto whole game in the Georgia Dome where 90% of your fans will make that trip up to Atlanta to watch that game and watch you take on North Carolina. Let's see what happens with that. Also, USC versus Alabama, 8 p.m., Dallas Cowboys Classic. That's a championship showcase. The defense for Bama, they gave up 14.4 points per game last year. USC's offense, they scored 35.1 points per game. Quarterback is Max Brown. Clay Helton's the new coach. Now, I am anxious to see how that matchup will work because if USC can actually put points on the board, we've got so much uncertainty at quarterback with Cooper Bateman and Blake Barnett that we don't actually know what Alabama can do. So I do think that will be a big plus if USC can show that they can score with Juju Smith-Schuster and also Adoree Jackson. Really like him. But I do think those DBs, Eddie Jackson and Fitzpatrick, they will make it tough on those wide receivers from USC, even though I know they all run very fast. T. Martin did say he had a lot of guys running in that 4.3 range. So T. Martin, coach, my high school quarterback coach, we got to see. We'll just have to see, sir. Now, also, big games that we've got coming up. We've got LSU versus Wisconsin, Notre Dame versus Texas, UCLA versus Texas A&M, Josh Rosen going down there to Texas A&M to take on Kevin Sutherland. That should be a highlight-packed game because you got two teams that like to throw the football in Texas A&M with the air raid offense and UCLA who has Josh Rosen, a great quarterback, completed 60% of his passes last year. So I think Josh Rosen will make that a competitive game. Leonard Fournette at Lambeau Field against Wisconsin. Don't think they can handle my man. Notre Dame versus Texas. Notre Dame, you got a lot of guys locked up. They won't let them out. Well, no. Actually, we had a lot of guys that were involved in an incident recently, a few days ago, that got them put off the team. Some are eligible to play, but they've got a lot going on in that program. So Texas, will they sneak around and beat Notre Dame? I do think they're the team with the most to lose in this opening weekend because Charlie Strong, this is your third year, sir. We got to see it. We got to see it to believe it. Because people, they say Tennessee's a fraud, but I mean, we're all saying this is the year for Texas, too. So we've got to see what Texas can finally do as far as revitalizing their program, okay? Because we haven't seen any burnt orange on the timeline ticker for a while, okay? Now, our unofficial sponsor, Indy's Chicken, 3-piece dinner box of questions. Let's give you a little bit of an NFL preview taste since we are doing our NFL preview show on Sunday here on Zoe Knows. Got 3 questions from my guy, Matt Cox. Thank you for filling out my box, sir, of Indy's Chicken, our unofficial sponsor. 3-piece dinner box. His first question, did Megatron retire because of nagging injuries, or did he come to the realization his terrible team would never make a deep playoff run? Now, that's one question, but it could be 2 questions. I do think Calvin Johnson did retire because of nagging injuries. He did get beat up over the course of several years there in Detroit. However, I also do think he's in a big contract with those guys last year. He looked at his team, assessed everything. Matthew Stafford, great guy, great quarterback, but what has he really done besides throw the ball hard and have the one highlight where he gets hurt with his shoulder and he goes out and throws a touchdown pass and everybody's like, oh, this guy's going to be cool. What has Matt Stafford really done? So, Calvin Johnson, I understand you, sir. You got to retire, take some time off, get your mind away from things. However, he's got a lot of juice left in the tank. So, I don't think Calvin Johnson just retired simply because of those nagging injuries, okay? And yes, it was because they did not make a deep playoff run. They went to the playoffs that year against the Saints. They lost that game. I just think that's emotionally draining for a player of Megatron's caliber when you're playing for so many years, getting beat up, and you're not getting that payoff and receiving that reward. I commend Jerome Bettis for staying with the Steelers as long as he did and not winning a Super Bowl and having to wait till 2006 and win one for the thumb. So I do think that was part of the reason, Matt. Also, your third question, do I think he'll ever come back? Why or why not? Now, Matt, I mean, let's be real about this, sir. Michael Jordan came back. Jay-Z came back rapping. Simba from Lion King came back to Pride Rock. So I don't see why Calvin Johnson, a.k.a. Megatron, won't come back and play football. I mean, he is a free man. This is America. I mean, I know we've got people like Colin Kaepernick getting on one knee. That's fine, sir. Do what you like. Voice your opinion however you want. However, people have that ability to retire from situations like Calvin Johnson did, but also in the back of their mind, they know they can come back because football, even though it is a sport that requires contracts and guaranteed deals and signing bonuses and stipulations within those contracts, it is still a free country, and football is not slavery, neither is baseball or NBA. So Calvin Johnson, I do think he could possibly come back. If not this season and help a team later in the year, then definitely next year. So I think this is a good time for him to kind of mellow out, go to Honduras maybe like Lisa Left Eye and, collect his thoughts. So we'll have to see what happens with Megatron. Now, you guys tune in on Sunday for our NFL preview show. We've got division talk, big stories, fantasy key starters. So make sure you tune into the Zono Sports Show so we can go over all that good NFL talk. People have been asking me, Zoe, when are you going to talk about NFL? Sunday. Make sure you watch. Thank you for watching the Zono Show, where you all know Zoe knows. See you next time.